Hey guys, Trollsies here with a video that's going to be going over the best settings to play BDO on. We're going to be looking at the settings in-game, through the Nvidia control panel, and through Windows itself. Sorry in advance to AMD users. So first things first, we're going to go to the settings in-game, go to performance, and it's going to take us to the optimization tab. When we go over to auto frame optimization, we're going to leave this turned off for regular play, only ever really turning it on for world bosses and potentially group PvP. When it is turned on, however, make sure it's set to anywhere between 30 and 60, as that's where you'll see the best performance in those instances. We're going to go down here to upscaling and make sure that's turned off. The only thing this really does is it renders the game in a smaller resolution than your monitor, and it's going to make the game look very grainy and pixely, and we don't want that, even if it increases performance. Down here to low power options is kind of a funny setting because it's on by default and it limits your GPU, so your game just runs really bad. I don't actually know why it's on by default or in the game in general, but make sure this is ticked off. Untick it right now. You're going to see an incredible amount of FPS gain from this alone if you have this ticked currently. As for attack decisions, this is just if you see crit, back attack, air attack, that's all this is. I prefer to see that. If you don't want to see that, you can untick it. Going down to optimization beta, we're going to skip it. I don't mess with anything in the beta settings. I don't suggest you do either. Graphics and textures. So here we have three options for texture quality, which is low, medium, and high. I prefer to only put it on medium. If you have a lower end CPU, you can put it on low, but I've had a lot of troubles even with like high-end CPUs on high where the game will get very laggy over time and I have to restart it more frequently, or when I enter a town there'll be like a huge lag spike and stuff like that. But putting on medium has kind of solved a lot of those issues. Going down here to graphics, there's a lot of different options, but I suggest you try to aim somewhere between high and very high, only because the higher this setting is, the less pop-in you're going to notice. The radius of pop-in is much larger, so you're not going to notice it as easily. The graphics are going to be a lot higher. There's going to be more bush and the grass and everything, so it's going to hide kind of the pop-in effect a lot nicer. So try to put that on very high. Over down here, we've got the tickable options, anti-aliasing and SSAO. So you can disable these in-game and then turn them on in Nvidia or AMD's control panel. I don't suggest it, however. You might save anywhere between 5 to 15 FPS depending on your settings, but it's going to look significantly worse than just having the settings in-game. So I highly suggest you just leave these ones on. The BDO team has done a really good job on these two compared to Nvidia and AMD. So here for display filter, this is a preference thing. It's just going to kind of put a filter over the whole game, blurs it up like a slight bit, but totally up to you. Tick it on, tick it off, see how you like it. Over here we have Faraway Objects, which is another kind of funny setting because in the picture itself you can barely tell the difference. It's like you still see the mountain, but in the second image you can kind of see the tip of the mountain better. If you really want it on, you can, but I highly suggest you just turn it off. It's not worth the 5 to 10 FPS you lose to see the tiny tip of a mountain, no matter how good your computer is. Over here, high-end beta mode, skip it, it's in beta. It's good for screenshots, that's about it. Depth of field, this is one that I leave off. If you like depth of field, you can turn it on. You'll lose a little bit of FPS, probably like 5, but if you really like it, it's kind of worth it, but I just hate it. Faraway Npcs is another one where you can turn it off. It's going to save you some frames, but at the same time, it'll probably save you 1 to 2 frames, and you're going to lose the immersion of seeing your NPCs before you see blobs. It's up to you, though. Over here is hit effect. Hit effect is actually really important. I don't think a lot of people realize this, but whenever you hit an enemy, they like kind of highlight. A lot of people don't like that for PvE as it will make you lag, especially during world bosses, and I agree with you. But for PvP, this is extremely important. Seeing your hits connect and being sure your CCs hit, kind of seeing their registration before they actually get CC'd, it's very nice. So I suggest having that turned on for PvP 100%. Reduce snow buildup is a preference thing. It doesn't bother me. Camera performance. So here we have camera vision range. I think it starts you off between 50 or 60, but you're going to want to put it to 70 unless you have a really bad GPU. This is just going to allow you to see more things on your monitor. It's like a field of view and an FPS. It's important to put on max to be like competitive. Overall camera effects is kind of the same thing. You can leave it on if you like it, but I highly suggest you don't, because it's going to make your screen shake. It's going to move left to right. It's going to almost vibrate, and it's going to hurt kind of seeing things around you and reacting quicker. So I prefer to have it off. I think you should too. So down here to workers and pets, funnily enough, this option wasn't even in the game originally, this work progress option, as you would, before this setting, you'd have to see every single one of your guild's workers, every single one of your workers, but now it's here. So make sure this is toggled off, because seeing it is extremely annoying, and it's going to drop your frames a lot, like a lot. Pets is another good option that they have. Show only my pets and hide pets are the only ones you really want to worry about, because show all pets is going to make you lag like crazy in towns, world bosses, grind groups. You don't want it. Show only mine or hide all. So now we're going to go down to display settings, go to game window, and this is full screen windowed, game window. It was just full screen, borderless windowed, and windowed mode. I like to start it on full screen and then go into full screen windowed. You can do that in the launcher and the little gear in the top right. The reason I do it is because I have a G-Sync monitor, and if you start it in full screen windowed, sometimes there's like little errors that occur. So starting the game in full screen, always a good idea. Screen resolution, just set that to your resolution. Don't worry about crop mode, and only adjust the UI scale if you're having trouble seeing. We'll go over here to display quality, and this is going to be similar to the performance setting tab, so we're going to skip over most of this. Be sure it's the same as the other settings, but it should adjust. It's like blood splatter. There's a couple extra settings in here, but they're all for like personal preference, and especially the blood splatter, blood stains, their preference. For optimization, same thing as the other tab, but over here is what we want to look at, which is remove others effects, remove others lanterns, remove faraway effects. Remove others lanterns is on by default, I believe, and you need to leave that on because you're going to lag like crazy otherwise. Remove others effects and remove faraway effects I know aren't ticked on, and the only reason I tick these on are for grinding, world bosses, stuff like that. For PvP, you have to leave them unticked, but for actually grinding, ticking them on is going to save you so many frames and make the game 100% more playable than it is right now. Going down to effects is the last tab, because this has effect down here, this setting, effect, opacity, opacity. You can turn it down to 30 or leave it at 100. 30 is going to save you frames, but 100 is going to allow you to see everyone's skills that you're fighting a lot better. It's going to be much more transparent, or much less transparent. And I suggest taking the loss of frames, because in PvP, you'd rather see what your enemy's doing than go 5-10 FPS faster. So this pretty much sums up all of the in-game settings. So next we're going to go over to the Nvidia settings. To get to the Nvidia settings, you simply right-click anywhere on your desktop and then go to Nvidia Control Panel. You can either do it through the desktop, or you can actually go down to this drop box, right-click on the icon, and do it from there. It'll take a second to load up, but once it loads up, it'll take you to the Manage 3D settings. So from here, we're either going to do it right in the global settings, or you can go to Program Settings. It'll load every single game that you have, and you can select Black Desert Online from the list. If it's missing, you can press Add, and then it'll load all the games you've recently played. You select Black Desert, and then you can change the settings there specifically. Since I already have it set up in global, I'll just do it there. It doesn't really matter. It's my main game, so it's totally up to you what you want to do in that regards. But let's get started with the actual settings, where Ambient Occlusion, we turn that off. Filtering, we let Black Desert control it. Anti-Aliasing, all of these anti-aliasing effects, we either let Black Desert control or we turn them off, because it's the same thing where I was talking about earlier with the anti-aliasing effects. They're in Black Desert. You can turn them off there and then turn them on here. Not going to look as good. You might save some frames, but it's not going to look as good. It just won't. Application control for the mode. Transparency, you want off. Core is just all, or you select your GPU and it'll say all. It's the same thing. DSSR factors, you want on. DSR factors, you want off. For pre-rendered frames, you want it 1 unless your CPU is like really, really good and your graphics card isn't that good. Just if your graphic card is getting bottlenecked by your CPU, you can turn this up to 3, but otherwise you're just going to get really bad input lag. So most people put it at 1 because their CPU and their GPU are pretty close to each other. For monitor technology, unless you have a G-Sync monitor or a FreeSync monitor or something like that, You're going to put it on fixed refresh. It should be the only option. MFAA you turn off. It's another anti-aliasing thing. For the rendering GPU, you'll select your GPU or auto select. It shouldn't matter. For power management mode, you're going to want always to have it on preferred maximum performance. Some people will suggest optimal power, and that might be good if you're leaving your PC on all night playing BDO, but in reality, prefer maximum performance is going to stop any sort of stuttering that happens when you're loading into zones or go and do a big engage with your group. Anything like that, you just want prefer maximum performance. It's really going to help you out. For preferred refresh rate, I have to have it on application controlled since I have a G-Sync monitor, and you're forced to set your FPS 5 lower than your monitor's max. It's just how G-Sync monitors are. But for you guys, you can just set it to highest available since you do just want whatever you can get at the maximum. For shader cache, you're going to turn that on. For texture filtering, you're going to want clamp, and for the other texture filtering option, you want high quality. You can turn clamp down to allow, and you can also turn high quality down to all the way to high performance, depending on how good your computer is. You're going to have to fidget around with those settings, but those are two that you can very easily change for FPS. Thread optimization, you want on for BDO. Triple buffering, VSync, you want both of those off, and then virtual reality frames isn't really related to BDO. Continuing kind of in the Nvidia settings though, we can go to change resolution. Make sure that your resolution is set to your monitor, and make sure your refresh rate is set to your monitor too. It's very important because there's a lot of people that'll buy a 144 Hz monitor, but then their monitor isn't set here, which is very important. Going down over here to desktop color, we can change, you want to change it to use Nvidia settings. It'll usually increase how good your monitor looks, but from there you can also turn up digital vibrance to basically make the colors pop more, which does help in a game like BDO where the colors are nice. You might want to make them more pronounced, but totally up to you. Very preference thing. But these are kind of the major settings for monitors. Unless you have a G-Sync one like me, you have to enable G-Sync here and then redo a couple of the 3D settings. But that's pretty much all there is to the Nvidia control panel. So for some other things you're going to want to change is going to be your power plan. So go into control panel, go over to system security, power options, and this will bring up your power plan. It should be at balanced by default, and then you'll have to go down here. It'll be show additional plans, and you'll see high performance. So once you have that selected, you'll go to change plan settings, change this to your preference, and then go to advanced power settings. So from here, you're going to want to make sure a couple things are correct. You want this to be at 0, make sure that that's at 0, and then going down here to processor power management, you want the minimum and the maximum to both be at 100%. It might not be depending on your computer, so make sure those are set to 100. It's just going to get your computer running at 100% efficiency at all times. So other than that, for actual like in-game Windows settings, you're going to want to focus on a couple programs. So the 3 programs that I have are Timer Tool, Unpark, and then EVGA Precision XOC. It's just a basic, it's like MSI Afterburner. You can use MSI Afterburner too, but you're going to want some sort of program like this where you can change your power target. So for the power target, most GPUs nowadays, especially the Nvidia ones, like the 970, 980, 1080 Ti, 1070, all of those have this as an option. All you're going to do is drag right here, power target, all the way to 110%, 120%, 115%, whatever the max you can. You just drag the power target all the way over, and it changes the temp target. So your graphics card is going to run slightly hotter, but not hot enough to really matter. It might run louder, so if that bothers you, you might not want to do this, but you're going to get a lot more out of your GPU by doing this. So I highly suggest you do that. Another program you're going to want is Timer Tool. It's just another kind of thing that if you have it on, you forget about it. So all you do is you load it, hit set timer, minimize, you never have to think about it again. It basically just keeps your CPU always doing something. So it doesn't really bottleneck, or not bottleneck, it doesn't really throttle. So you might like engage with your team and it might lag really bad. But if your CPU is always running at maximum power, maximum efficiency, it's always doing like a little bit of something, then it'll be less likely for that kind of stuff to happen. And it's just a good problem solver overall. And the last program that you really do need to get is Unpark Cpu. It's just going to unpark your CPU. So what that means is about 20% of your CPU is limited to like Windows. Like they kind of take it and say you're not allowed to use this. This just basically makes it so Windows doesn't have all that power. So you're able to get more out of your system. But with these three programs, the other settings that I showed you, I really think this should help you guys. Let me know in the comments down below if this increased your FPS, if it made the game look better, or if you're having any trouble at all. You can also message me on Discord at Trollsies 7444. So if you have any questions, comments, anything, let me know down below or on Discord. I'll be free to answer any questions, any sort of help that anyone needs. Please share this to any friends that are playing Black Desert and need any help, and you all have a nice day.